Excellent. Right. This is great. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Quarantine Podcast from everyone's houses. This week, we're doing an Around the World special we have Irene with us all the way from the US of A. And we also have Callum and Grace as well, who are hanging out today, who are from the UK. So that's cool as well. Do you guys all want to do a quick bio about yourselves so we can like find out a little bit about your name, about your face, where you've been, where you're going, what's going on? That'd be cool. That's a good place to start. And I don't know if you want to start with you, Irene, and then we'll sort of work our way around whoever.
Work down the
cool.
ranks.
Yeah. I mean,
Cool. Yeah. So I guess general overview wise, I realized that I want to get into film and TV in 11th grade in my junior year of high school. I watched a show called Smallville, which is about Superman, like before he becomes Superman. He's basically in high school at this point of the TV show. And I was going through a falling out with my friend, and it helped me, I guess, through that time. And after I finished, I realized like, wow, like this TV show really helped me, like feel better. And maybe like I can also work on TV shows that do the same thing for other people. So I watched some of the bonus features on the DVD set because I bought the DVD set. And I saw people working on it, on the VFX of it. And I was like, oh, wow, like there are actually people working on this. So maybe it is possible. So I decided to go to Pepperdine University in Malibu. I'm from Southern California, so it was like maybe a 2-hour drive from where I lived. But I decided to go to Pepperdine and just go there for general education and then transfer to an actual film school. But while I was there, I met a lot of really cool people, and I decided, okay, well, instead of going to film school, why don't I just finish early and try to, just get done with classes so I can start working. So I ended up in my 3 years there, I ended up cutting a lot of short films, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And my film wasn't really a film school, so you had to be your own cinematographer while you're holding the boom pole, and like you had to do all these things at the same time. And I was like, okay, well, I don't like doing that. And I knew it was going to be different in a professional environment, but nothing there really called out to me. And then I ended up being the editor for a bunch of the short films that I had worked on. And I thought, oh, wow, like this is really fun, and I like putting things together. It felt like, like a puzzle that you had to, like figure out like, okay, how do these pieces go together? Because sometimes they wouldn't go together, and you had to be the one to problem solve that. So I decided that I wanted to do that. And when I finished my junior year, I didn't know anybody in film and TV, and I wanted to defer my graduation so that I can graduate with my friends. So I was kind of like, okay, well, why don't I just look up editors and assistant editors from TV shows that I like and see if I get a response. So I Googled editors and assistant editors from shows like iZombie and Jane the Virgin and Riverdale, because they were all on the CW, and that's where Smallville had aired before, like years before. But I really liked that network, so I was like, okay, let's do that. And I ended up finding someone's email on Vimeo, and I emailed them and was like, hey, I'm a student. I just finished my classes. I want to be an editor eventually. Like, would you be willing to meet up with me? And I did this a couple of times, but one in particular named Tuan, he met up with me in downtown LA. And we ended up talking for like 2 hours. I came prepped with some questions. And after the meeting, I followed up and was like, hey, like, thanks for meeting up with me. And he asked me to send my resume over so that we can look over that. So he helped me with that. And he ended up helping me get my first job on Scandal. He helped me get an interview on iZombie. Didn't end up getting that, but on Scandal, they were looking for someone like me, I guess, like someone who was rather green, like pretty new to the business, but willing to do the work, and they had another PA that could train me. So they didn't need someone really like super experienced. So yeah, I worked on Scandal. That's where I met Revis. Revis was one of the assistant editors there. We had 3 editors and 3 assistant editors working at the time, and it kind of rotated through that season. And then I applied for the ACE internship, American Cinema Editors, and ended up becoming one of their interns. I graduated that summer too. Like I graduated, the show ended, and then I applied for this internship. I worked with Tuan on an indie film to start getting my days to get into the union. Because in order to work on shows like Scandal, shows like How to Get Away with Murder, you have to be in the union as an assistant editor or as an editor too. And then I jumped on to How to Get Away with Murder as their post PA. And then by the end of the season, I had worked enough like side gigs to get into the union. I was at a trailer house for 2 months just to see if I liked that, but I missed the scripted a lot. So at one of the events that I had volunteered at as an ACE intern, like with the internship, if you get it, you are shadowing a week in film, a week in TV, a week in unscripted, and then a week in different post vendors like sound and with VFX and all that. And you also get to volunteer at different events. And at one of those events is where I met my editor, Harry Chun. He's worked on stuff like Detroit. He was an additional editor on First Man. And he had just finished on Euphoria, the TV show on HBO, when he had asked me if I want to be his assistant editor on a A24 Plan B movie. And I was like, okay, sure, like maybe. I don't know if I want, like, because I had always had it in my head that I was going to be in TV because I love television. And when you're in TV, if I didn't know something, I could ask the 2 other assistant editors because you're working with a team of people. But I knew that if I was going to be the only assistant editor on this film, that it was just going to be me. So that was a bit scary. But yeah, I just decided like, okay, cool. I'll just do that and see what happens, you know? And I had kind of told him like, hey, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. And, you know, thankfully he was okay with that. It was a low budget indie film. So he was basically like, okay, well, anything you don't know, I'll help you with. But yeah, we finished the movie. It was really challenging, but it was a lot of fun. And I definitely learned a lot from it. And I ended up going to Sundance. So it ended up winning the top award and then the audience award at Sundance this past January, early February. And then I was on another project with Harry, but the week before that happened, I filled in for a week at How to Get Away with Murder. So it was cool to kind of be a PA and then be asked to fill in for a week, you know? And then, yeah, Harry and I had been working on another project for a week before the coronavirus hit. So now I'm unemployed.
Yeah, and so since then you've sort of been just sort of floating around, I guess, and not really being able to do. Yeah. Well, as it is with everything, right? It's just sort of everything stopped.
You know, a lot of people I know, a couple of people I know have been able to work from home, but because we didn't film enough to work from home, like we had only filmed 2 days of footage. That's kind of why we were kind of stuck and sent home. But I mean, if it had hit like maybe a month later, we'd have some more stuff to work with. But yeah, depending on that, you have people working from home, like finishing off their season, or just kind of sitting ducks until you know, COVID is no more.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's the way it is. So do you want to go with Grace? Do you want to do a little bio about yourself, and then we'll
It's not going to be as exciting as that one, but I'll try. So before I came to uni, I hadn't really had any experience with filmmaking, except making like these silly short films with my friends growing up, which I edited in iMovie. And then at the very start of first year, I was struggling to get an editor role, like on a good short film with like a group that I, you know, felt like I worked well with. And then I saw one of Chesden Mills films, and I thought, you're good. I want to work with you. So it was actually, I bumped into him at a flat party, a little bit tipsy, and I said to him, can I edit your next film? And he said, yeah. And then I've basically stuck with the editing role on uni films since then. And then pretty much just learn everything else as I've gone along, like software and everything that goes along with it.
Excellent, great, yeah. We'll come back to some of those things you say actually, but
Okay.
there's something you said that I like anyway.
Okay.
And then Callum.
Well, basically I've loved film since I was a little kid. I remember my dad and I would go to the cinema quite a lot. And then in high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when it came to A levels. And I remember the careers advisor told me about this class that had been running for the year before, but I didn't have much knowledge about it, called Moving Image Arts. And it was actually just making your own film. You had to do 2 short films over the 2 years, and I had already been, filming like family holidays, that sort of stuff, cutting them together, and that's where I really got into the editing. I really liked my music videos and my movies, and that's where I taught myself a lot of my editing techniques, because I would see it and I would go onto YouTube and I would search up how they would do it, and then I would practice it. It sounds really sad, but I don't know why, but I really enjoyed it. And then when I came to uni and I was working with other people on productions, I tried different roles, but nothing really sort of stuck to me like editing did. So I edited, I think it was 2 films over the 3 years, but that's why I decided to choose editing as my final major project role. That's really it.
Excellent. Yeah. So, I mean, everyone here, even including myself, actually, we're all editors, which is very cool. I've waited for this podcast for a very long time because I'm particularly fond of editing myself. So I don't know, like there's obviously a few different bits and bobs that we've had people ask on Instagram that we can talk about. But obviously, like, I think what would be good to start on really is, the difference between the UK and the US in terms of this sort of film school and the way and sort of career progression and stuff. So I mean, UK guys, I mean, have you done any freelance work in particular? And then obviously same to you, Irene, have you done any freelance work being in America? But I know a little bit about this already, so it's a bit of a trick question, I feel. But yeah, so I mean, UK guys, do you want to start like some freelance work you've done before, or anything you've done for other people outside, sort of experiences with that?
Callum, do you want to go?
I've started my own clothing company where I create a few promos and videos for it, but I've also done a wee bit of work for Salford Youth Alliance. My flatmate Reese put me in contact with them, and they needed a video done for a Halloween walk that they did, which I shot and edited by myself. But apart from like that sort of stuff and my own sort of work, I've never done anything really paid or anything for a bigger company.
And Grace, have you done anything?
So I'm racking my brain trying to think what the module was called. There was a module in second year where you had to like get work experience as part of
professional film.
That was professional film practice. And so yeah, as part of that module, we had to go out and find some work experience. So that was kind of what like kick-started me looking for work experience, and I managed to get some experience, like obviously unpaid, at a small post house in Manchester called Rabble, and I just did like a week there just doing unpaid work and runner work. And then I carried on doing like a few days here and there just because I really enjoyed it and was learning a lot from it. And then eventually they started saying like that they'd pay me for work. So I've had like a little bit of runner work, but that was in like a small post house. And then I went to Bolton Film Festival and met an editor there called Andrew McKee, who I then asked if I could go and sit in with him and just watch him work one day. So he was like totally up for that. He was like really nice. And I went in for the day, and then a little while after that, he said he was editing a film for the BFI, and he said they're looking for an assistant editor. It's unpaid, like we haven't got the budget to pay an editor, but if you want to come in and do it for work experience, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, then that was another bit of work experience. And just pretty much getting my hands on literally whatever I can. Like I've met some really cool people through Bolton Film Festival, and like Adrian who runs it, he's like so nice and super helpful. And I've done a little bit of like just helping out wherever I can with an indie director called Jason Wingard, who came in and did a talk at uni actually. Yeah, and they're all just super nice, and they're willing to give people work experience. And I think that like it's just, even if you're not doing a module where you're forced to go and find some work experience, I think like now I can say in hindsight how important it is to go out and try and find work experience as soon as you can, because even if you're not taking a module where you have to, I'd still suggest doing it because it definitely helps.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw in a little bit of my 2 cents here as well, because I actually have done quite a fair bit of paid work, freelance around various different people, and I've found that the work sort of at this level where you're still at university, it's not too like people sort of don't expect too much of you at this level, but you can. If you come across, if you have this very professional exterior and you do everything in a certain way and you're very like, you keep talking to them stuff, and like there's a bit of back and forth that's always involved with, doing freelance work, eventually you can start sort of rolling and getting a few more jobs and stuff and finding the work in the UK. Now, I don't want to ramble on too long because I'm not actually very good at talking, believe it or not. I'd rather have Irene, so you being in the US now, you don't have good old free healthcare. So freelance work is a big no-no, right?
Oh, yeah. So actually all the work that you do is, I guess you don't get like the freelance paperwork for it, but it is technically freelance because you're not staffed, you're not working at one company and you're not getting benefits from that one company. So that's partly why you want to join the union if you want to work in scripted work, because because the union is what gets you your healthcare. So when you first get like all the non-union stuff that I did to get into the union, like to get on the roster is what they call it. Like that was all like, okay, well, I was just doing stuff on the side. I kind of had healthcare from when I was a PA, and it's but yeah, those jobs that I did were, I guess, more freelance than like the regular work that I do. But once you are in the union, once you get on your first union show, you have to get 600 hours of paid work as a union assistant editor in order to get your first 6 months of health insurance. And then from there on, you have to get 400 every 6 months, and then you can like bank up to 450. But that's kind of how that works there. It doesn't work like that overall in the US. It's really weird how it works. Like I don't know why they do it this way, but yeah, but that's part of the reason why, like some people ask like, oh, well, it's freelance, like, isn't it scary? I never even thought about going on staff somewhere. Like the place where I maybe thought about it was the trailer house, just because I love the people so much. But yeah, they set it up in a way that you're pretty okay. Like you're not guaranteed a job, like right after you finish with your old one, but that's kind of why you depend on the network that you create and the friends that you become friends with to help you get your new gig. Or like the editors that you meet. Like there are different ways to get your next gig, but they do cushion it in a way where you don't have to worry too much. But inevitably some people do lose it because maybe the next job that they get is a really good opportunity, but it's non-union work. Those non-union hours don't count towards your union hours for your healthcare. So yeah, it's weird.
So you sort of have almost like 2 ways you can go. You can either go being part of a company, or you can go for the union work, which is technically the sort of the version of freelance in the US, right? And you sort of go down that route and sort of bounce around. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I do know that some non-union places, you aren't, because like when you're in the union, you're guaranteed a certain scale, like you're guaranteed a certain amount of money. and you're protected in a way from like if you are working in unsafe work environments, then you can let the union know and all that. But I believe that's a lot of the non-union places, like the trailer house I worked at, they do have health care from their own thing, because those people tend to be staff at that company.
Yeah, awesome. So we'll go on to like one of the fun little questions we have sort of hanging out over here. This is more about like career paths, and it's sort of the progression from out of film school. How the hell does a person like me go get a job somewhere? Like what happened to you? How did you manage to fall into work and have a job and stuff? Like, I might not have a job. These guys might not have a job. No one might have a job, but we need to know, what's the trick? Where's the secrets?
You're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone who knows the answer. I need to know. Someone needs to tell me. I don't know how to get a job.
Well, when I initially meet up with people, I never go in with the intention of getting a job. It just kind of happens because people, especially in post, they want to help you because someone's helped them in the past to get to where they are. So in the US at least, like they're, for the most part, what people do is they become post PAs, and then from post PAs, like you meet a bunch of people and you make a good impression, or you try to at least. And then if you want to become an assistant editor, then yeah, like you go and get your hours and then you become an assistant editor. And then after working there for a couple of years, you become an editor. So getting that first PA job, like I had kind of said it before with like just cold emailing people. I just did it, and like it, for me, it worked that way. And I, like whenever I'm meeting someone who just graduated from college, that's what I tell them to do. I'm like, well, like hopefully like you reach out to me like after like I just talked like at a university in Loma Linda a couple weeks ago, and like I haven't heard from anyone yet, and like it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, if someone comes, like keep in touch with them. I know that it's weird and it's like, oh well, like I don't want to bother them. I'm like, no, just do it, you have to have a certain amount of like personability. Like I don't like, you have to be personable, and like you have to follow up, and like because all these things like kind of say who you are as a person, and like are you someone who like something that I asked my bosses in my interview for Scandal. I asked them like, okay, well, what kind of traits do you look for? And like they were like, okay, well, we look for someone who's flexible. Like, can we work with you for 12 hours, like because you're stuck in the office with all these people for that long of a time, and like do you have the type of personality where you can do that? And honestly, like meeting that first person, having that first person or like mentor help you is really, really helpful. You can go to different mixers out here. Like there are a lot of other people who are trying to get their first step. But like I know plenty of people, like people ask me all the time, hey, do you know any post PAs? And often I'm like, no, I don't. Like I don't have anybody that I can recommend, because like I don't know enough people who have just graduated who are looking to make that first step, who I like believe has what it takes, or like has shown me that like, oh, you reached out to me, like that shows me that you have initiative. Like I've never seen you work, but I like you. I like your personality. I think that you're really nice. I think that you can do a good job. So those are all things that I kind of look for too when I'm like meeting someone and like looking to recommend someone. But surprisingly, a lot of people don't do that. That's probably why the editor did help me, because no one else reached out to him that summer. Like of all the people in the United States who was graduating that year, like I was the only person. Maybe there was someone else, but like yeah, so that would be a big thing. Like just don't be afraid to reach out to people, and like don't be a jerk.
Well, yeah, it's interesting to hear from you, someone who's obviously, you're not necessarily like, a massive, a huge, crazy editor person in like the depth of Hollywood somewhere, but you're having people ask you, do you know someone? And those people who aren't taking those opportunities to come and talk to you first and go, oh, well, I would really like to get into this business. You have that direct link to some, like this person getting a job, right, in their first job. So
yeah,
it's interesting to hear that from, it can be, you could come, like the inspiration could come from anywhere, right? And anyone could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, what you have to remember is that everyone that you're working with right now, you're all going to be moving up together. So the people who have asked me are my team member, like my team that I worked with on Scandal. Like my on Scandal, my coworker Jamie, like she became a post coordinator. And so like when she's looking for a PA, she'll ask me because we've worked together and she knows me, and like she knows that I maybe know people, and because I know people through Ace, like she will have, like, she'll be like, hey, like, do you know anybody? Or I'll have my post supervisor. Like I've had several people who were my bosses who will ask me because hopefully, like, I think I've made a good impression, you know, with showing them I can work hard, and that I won't recommend people lightly, because obviously if you just start recommending people who can't do the job, then people won't really trust your recommendations either. But it is kind of funny how that works, and that's something that I've kind of realized, that, you know, like everyone that you meet, they're your equals, you know, and like it's cool that you're all able to go up together. You're kind of in the same, like you're all in different elevators, but you're all going up together. Like it's a cool way to of looking at it, and so that's also why you shouldn't be a jerk to anyone, because you never know who's going to help you get your next job, and also being a jerk is rude.
That's just the way it is, right? It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys want to pitch in something that you've thought of while we, anything to do with, you know, in terms of jobs and stuff. If you have anything you want to say, throw it out there.
I was just gonna kind of just ask Irene more about what she's just spoke about, in that like you seem to be like accelerating like really quickly in you know, in the industry, and just kind of, you know, what do you think is kind of about yourself that's helping you to do that, you know, and like, is it because you're like a really fast learner? Is it just because you're super naturally talented? Or
I feel like I do pick up on things pretty quickly, and I've always really liked computers. And, you know, like when I was first starting on Scandal, I didn't know how to use Avid. That's editing. That's pretty much a standard in the US. You have some people who cut on Premiere, but Avid's the standard. But yeah, I mean, like Revis taught me, you know, like Revis taught me how to use Avid, and like she taught me how to do dailies. I know, right? And like my editor Tuan, like he taught me how to do assisted editing too. He was like, well, I directed the short film. I can't pay you, but I'll teach you how to assistant edit if you're cool with that. And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. Like I would love that, you know. And so you know, I think that I'm pretty nice to people too, and like it's kind of like a combination of those things. But I don't have the best memory, so what I do is I take extensive notes. So when I was shadowing Revis, like I would, and she was teaching me like, okay, this is where I put in dailies, this is how I do that. I didn't quite understand how Avid worked at the base level, so I'm just putting like, okay, put this in this folder, put this in this folder. Like it's like I'm having a conversation with myself, because I'll know like, oh, you're going to forget this, so I'm going to write this down extremely detailed, so that when you read this in the future, like you'll be like, oh, thanks, past Irene, like thanks for taking that, like that note for me, you know. So like identifying my weaknesses, so like my memory for one, like, and figuring out ways to make sure that I have those bases covered. And, you know, you should have some degree of confidence too. Like I definitely didn't when I first started on Scandal. I was really unsure of myself, and I would ask my bosses like, hey, is there anything I could do better? But at some point that was affecting my work and the way that I was just going about like my job. And I had kind of talked to my mom, and like over like in November. So we started in July. In November is when I talked to her and was like, you know, I don't know why they picked me. I don't know why they chose me. I'm not even graduated yet. Like I don't have any post experience. Like, why did they go with me? You know? And she had kind of said like, well, you know, they knew all that going in, and they picked you for a reason. Like they wouldn't have picked you unless they saw something in you that knew that they could do that you could do it. And I was like, I guess so. Like, I guess suppose you're right, you know? And from there, I focused less on, I guess I just started to trust other people more. Like, hey, like if I make a mistake, they'll let me know, rather than like doubting myself all the time, and just kind of having a bit more confidence in the work that I could provide, And I think what also helped was like it's helpful to be like fun around the office too, and like build a kind of camaraderie, because that's what you really do as a PA. Like you're supporting the entire post staff. Like, yes, you're getting lunches, yes, you're doing runs, but like you're doing that so that the assistant editors, the editors don't have to worry about that. So over there, like right before holiday started, I did a countdown and I photoshopped everyone's faces into Christmas posters. So like, and I put one up every day. I think I did a 12-day countdown and I just put one up every day. And after that, people were like, oh, that's so funny, like, and it was just a way of showing people, like, cause I was a bit shy then, and kind of to make up for that, I was like, okay, well, people will enjoy this, so let's do that, and kind of like break the ice a little bit, for me at least, and to make me more comfortable around other people. So yeah, like it is helpful to know what you are good at and what you're not good at, and kind of figure out like, okay, well, if I'm not good at this, what can I do to make up for that? Or what can I do to, to kind of figure out like what, like, like problem solving, really. Like that's what you do as an assistant editor, like technical problems. And you should know how to read the room. Like when the director's there, what to say and what not to say. And thankfully, I'm with an editor who is a really good friend and a mentor. And he'll tell me like, hey, like, I kind of already know, but if I do ever overstep, he'll let me know, like, oh, this is not, like, you shouldn't do this because ABC. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because, like there are some times when you don't know. I didn't know what it would be like working in a professional environment. So I kind of overcompensated and was like extra nervous. But there are people who like undercompensate and they just do whatever, like the director's in and they just barge in and they're like, oh, well, like, let me take a look. Like, I know people who've done that. Like they'll give notes to their editor and I'm like, what are you doing? Stop it. Like so it's just knowing how to balance that line too, because you are professional, but you're also going to be friends with all these people. So it's complicated, but you just kind of do it and you have to adapt and be flexible, and it works out, like it just kind of happens. But being self-aware.
I mean, have you ever did you ever do any jobs previous, like this is a sort of, it sounds like a weird question, but did you do any jobs previous to any sort of professional editing sort of jobs or film industry type jobs? Or
I worked at school, like the camera checkout, but I had never had a job beforehand.
Okay, interesting.
I hadn't worked before, because I know that some people do, but I've never had to work like in high school. I never had a part-time job or anything. So, and I kind of knew, like, I had told them that, like, oh yeah, like I've never worked before, and like what that says. But I think that going to like, even though I hadn't worked before and hadn't had that experience, like going to university and like showing them like, hey, like I finished school, and like, and being able to tell them like I finished early and I finished in 3 years so that I could start working. That's something that I would tell them in my interview, because it shows them like, oh, well, like I have focus, and this is what I want to do, and I'm pursuing this, and I'm serious about this, and I feel like even though my school, it didn't really teach me that much about, like filmmaking and about post-production, I don't regret going there, partly because of the people, but partly because like it was really helpful to tell people like, I finished in 3 years and I was able to like, and I wanted to set aside my senior year to work full time. Like I kind of crafted that narrative to show people like, hey, this is like, here's a glimpse into like who I am, and like I feel like this will show you that I'm driven, so.
So Grace and Callum, you're both in your third year at the moment, aren't you? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously with COVID, things are a little bit different. I mean, how have you found your experience with film school? Like, what have you come out of, like, you know, Salford, knowing that otherwise maybe you wouldn't have, and how, you know, like going with off what Irene says as well, you know, how you've treated film school going to be, you know, part of how you're going to craft your narrative in the future? I don't know if that's a bit of a complicated rambly question, but yeah.
No, well, personally, I'd never worked on a production with a group, let alone, you know, I've got people that are doing sound, doing DOP, doing working on the camera. It's great that I've got the chance to work with different people doing different roles, which it's made it easier, because I know when I was in my A levels, I was doing everything myself and I had to look out for everything. It's been great to be collaborating with other people, and it's been great for like second and third year getting to do an editing class for for just doing straight editing, which has been great because it's helped me to fine tune my skills and learn new softwares like Avid and DaVinci. So it's been great. It's really helped me narrow down my decision of what I'd like to go and do in the future.
I guess for me, I think that with the course, it's 100% like what you put into it is what you'll get out of it. Like, you know, so all the talks that the uni put on, like they've had some really cool people come in, and you know, I was like, sometimes you don't want to go, like you just can't be bothered. You're thinking I could just go home and I could just go and get in bed, but like, you know, just go into that, you know, talk that might be 1 hour, 2 hours, or Q&A or whatever, and then, you know, chatting to them after, you know, like you say, like Irene said before, you're not necessarily going, please give me a job or anything, but, you know, just me, you know, getting meetings. I feel like meeting someone in person is like, it can do a lot, even if it's not, you know, anything special, just showing your face and saying hi. Yeah, and I think just utilising what you can out of the course. So go to all the talks, and like, you know, get feedback on work. Go to your lecturers, you know, and pester them. Say, give me feedback on this. Tell me what I can do better. Yeah, and get a lecturer like Revis.
Yeah, especially during the time that you have at film school, right, when you can afford to make these mistakes, and you might not necessarily be going into a job where, you know, these mistakes could impact your, you know, professionalism or your development or whatever within that role. It's a good point, really, that, you know, even though we have, you know, we spoke to Jake Roberts a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, yep, I've never been to film school, guys. It's just like, huh. And he sort of, and, you know, you look where he is now as well, and he's doing all kinds of crazy editing jobs now, and, you know, he's got a lot of people requesting him to do things. But at the end of the day, within the film school environment, we do have that added benefit of being able to learn all these things and make these mistakes and, you know, blah, 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 etc. Without the necessary, you know, upsets that could go along with it.
Yeah, and be around your peers too. Like the fact that you're able to do something like this and like meet the people that, like, literally you're all going to be going up together. And like you wouldn't really have that opportunity. Like it's a lot harder when you have to create your own network from scratch, and to do it, because you like it is a lot more work. But yeah, getting to work in a safer environment, and to like the risks are a lot lower. Like you not cutting something well doesn't mean like you're not going to get fired, you know, like, whereas that's a very real thing in a working environment. So getting to do that and learning how to interact with other people, learning how to collaborate with people, like knowing like what to say and like when to say it. Those are all things that you can practice when you're at school, where, you know, like you saying something wrong at work to your, like, to a director or to your boss, it's like, okay, well, like now, like a slap on the hand, you know, like it you're able to do that because you're all, like, your friends, you know, and like your collaborators, and like you all also know, like, oh yeah, like we are in university, you know, like we're all working together and we're all learning still. So yeah, the risk is a lot lower, which is good.
Yeah, it's nice. It is nice. But yeah.
Sorry. I mean, I'll just whilst you think of your next question, I'll just like say, like, I think Irene is totally right. Like, something that I've learned at uni is like I've developed team working skills so much in uni. Like, it is something that I wouldn't say, I don't know if I found it hard, but it's definitely something that I've developed, and just learning how to how to get along with people, and like Irene said, read the room. And I'm still learning it now, like especially this last project. I feel like it's something that I've, just constantly learning about working in a team, because it's like you rely on it so much to get far, I think.
Definitely. Go on, Callum.
No, I completely agree with that. I just have a bit of a quick question for Irene regards to like networking, because I know we've mentioned it briefly here, but like what way do you feel is the best way to reach out to people within the industry, and like what sort of things would you put in, say, like an email or like a message on the likes of Twitter or Instagram, if you use that?
I've used just Google and finding emails before, and I've used LinkedIn. I have reached out on Facebook before, but I feel like at one point I had just done that for one person, and I kind of scrapped that because I didn't want to. It felt a bit too personal. But LinkedIn is more work related, so I was like, okay, let's just do that. But the nice thing about also going to university is that you can let people know when you do reach out to them, like if you happen to find an email, and when you happen to find like a LinkedIn like profile, you can let them know like, hey, like I'm just about to graduate, or I'm in university, and it gives you a little bit more pull with being like letting people know like, hey, like I'm a student, you know, like can I have a bit of your time, could I maybe talk to you about how you got to where you are. I think I had crafted mine. I still have my old emails. I pretty much came up with a general template. I made it a bit more personal when I was sending it to each person. But basically, each of these, let's see. Okay, yeah. So I kept it pretty simple. When I had reached out to Tuan, the one who helped me get my first job, I had said, hello, my name's Irene Chun, and I'm a rising senior at Pepperdine University. I'm an aspiring editor for narrative television, so being specific about what I want to do. And I was wondering if you had if you were free sometime for some lunch or coffee as an informational interview. I'm really passionate about several shows, particularly the ones on the CW, including iZombie. In fact, Smallville was a show that got me interested in comic books and getting into the film and television industry in the first place. I know that you're really busy, but if you did have time to meet up or even spare some time to answer a couple questions, it would mean so much. Thank you so much for your time. So I made it I try to include, what they had worked on. And, when we actually did talk, I mentioned like it's a zombie show. So like the way that they cook the brains is really fun. So I had mentioned that in there, like when I asked them like, oh, like, how did you do that? Or like, that was really cool. I never ever reach out to someone, even if they've done something really fancy. Like I never reach out to someone that I'm not a fan of, because you show up there and you're going to be like, oh, well, your movie was really cool. And it's just like, what are you going to talk about? Like the things I'm really into. So being able to talk about his show with him, or like being able to express genuinely that I like, even if I was like, hey, I really loved your show. Like it, like the way I say that is different than like if it's for a show that I don't really like, like if I like, I think last year or the year before, like I met Gary Dallner who cut on Fleabag and Killing Eve, and I hadn't watched Fleabag at the time. And so if I was to be like, oh, like I heard about your show Fleabag, like I hear it's pretty cool, like it's different than like, oh my gosh, I finished Fleabag. That second season was so good, like, and being able to do that. And like the cool thing is that once you start meeting more people, you become friends with them, and like, or like maybe you like one of my people that I had shadowed with, named Nina Herb. I shadowed with her on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and I hadn't watched the show. I had watched the pilot, and I was like, oh, it's okay. And then when I shadowed with them was the last season, the 4th season, and the characters are at a completely different place. So I binged the show, and it was incredible, and being able to tell her like, oh, like not like going to a show and I'm like, oh, I know this show. And then, like a week later being like, oh my gosh, like I get it now. Like it's like you did such a great job, and being able to tell people that like I feel like it makes for a lot more of a genuine interaction. And then like in the email, like I tell them a little bit more about myself. Like Smallville really has been my in for everything, like because that show really has meant so much to me, and like it's the reason why I'm doing this, and like getting to like work on shows that other people enjoy. Like that is when I'm having bad days, when I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm like, okay, well, someone's going to watch this show and they're going to enjoy it, and hopefully it'll help them feel better. And I feel like with COVID, like it has been like so many people are watching Netflix, so many people are watching Hulu, like people are watching shows in this time because it's helping them feel better when everything's like a wreck, So be personal. Like, I would just say like, be personable. Like getting like, just let them know that you're a student too. I use that as much as I could until I had enough people that I could reach out to, that I was like, hey, like I know like you're friends with this person. Could you meet up with like, could I like, would you mind giving me their email? Like, can you ask them if it's okay if I can meet up with them? Like once you start meeting more people and they know someone, I got to meet an editor on the show Psych because she had worked with him on another show. And I asked him like, hey, like, can I meet up with her? Like, can you ask her if it's okay if I get her email from her? And she was like, yeah, sure. Because then you have a mutual friend and you have like already a connection established, rather than like having the show as like you have a show as a connection and like you have a person as a connection too. So it does seem scary, but most people are really, really nice. And there are some people that I didn't hear from, like maybe 2 people out of like the 6 or 8 that I reached out to. But for the most part, like if the timing's right, like because he was on hiatus, the show was completely edited at the time, so he had time to meet up with me. When people are busier, like in the fall or in the first couple months of the year, like they might not have as much time, but it's like, okay, well, you don't have time now, but like, let me follow up. Is there a time that does work for you? And just kind of scheduling around them to do that. But you also want to make yourself available. Like I reached out to people on purpose on like once I was done with classes, because I didn't want to meet up with someone and then be like, oh, well, I heard about this opening as a post BA, like, are you available? And I let them know like, oh, well, I have class at 8, like I can't do that,
Okay.
So that's just something that I did personally, because I would have felt awful like having to turn down something. Like once you are, I feel like you can definitely start establishing those relationships now and like keep following up with them and like building that relationship up, and like going to coffee and doing like, like going to the pub for a drink, like doing that for a year, or it's okay to start it off like once you're more available in time, and once they're more available in time too.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a weird question. Do you have like pubs in America? Because you just said pub, and like that's and something I don't associate with America. Like
no, we don't.
You were colloquialism.
I studied I studied for a year in London my junior year in the summer, and that's something I miss a lot about.
What,
like I hate that we don't have this
man,
here. Like they're all bars and it's gross. I'm like, no, I just want to sit down and like hang out with people. Like yeah. But I was studying Harry Potter for a month and it was great.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh man.
Literature.
We actually have like, okay, this is actually a real question now. Okay. What is like, so it's basically a question about advice for editors working with directors in lockdown. And then it's like, what kind of workflow can you recommend to a show to show the director virtually and communicate effectively? So this is an Instagram question, and I can just really quickly say that anything that you can share your screen with, and be able to have like a decent mic and a decent internet connection will save you so much time. And also do a lot of the work without people there, and then show them like once it's a lot of the way done. That really helps when you're working in lockdown. Do it on your own as best you can, because it's going to be more of a pain in the ass to talk over the internet and when someone can't really see what you're doing. So yeah, that's my advice. But I don't know if you guys have any other 5 cents, because I know you two might have been doing your film projects with your groups or whatever, and maybe Irene's been doing a couple things as well. So yeah, you guys go ahead. I'm going to shut up now.
Grace, do you want to go for it?
I mean, yeah, it's something that we found quite hard at first. So I'm working with Georgie King. She's directed this project, and we get along so well with each other in the edit suite. Like it's like one of the reasons why we love working together, because like we enjoy being in the edit suite so much together, and like bouncing off each other and stuff, and we just seem to have the same thoughts and the same mindset, which is really cool. So then when we obviously got told that we can't go in edit suite together anymore, we were pretty gutted. But we did try doing it over the internet and using different screen sharing things, but nothing really worked because you couldn't play it back in proper time. It was just like lagging. There was nothing that would play it back with great quality. So we tried so many different screen sharing things because we were determined to, but we didn't manage to really find anything that worked. So in the end, we've just resorted to her giving, like, I send an export, she writes a bunch of notes against time code, and then sends them back over. I make the amendments, and yeah, send it just back and forth. Really, that's what we've resorted to.
Codes, people, burn in your time codes. So
yeah,
people always forget. Also, advice for people out there listening: if you ever want to send something to someone, but you're not sure if they're going to pay you or not, this is a freelance thing. Make sure you burn in your time codes into every single piece of media you send them, because then they cannot use it for any kind of export and cannot steal your work from you that you have worked very hard on. Burn in your time codes, people. That's all I'm going to say.
That's quite smart, to be honest. I've had incidents where I've lost a project to a band who then took my edit and then cut up my edit and edited it together with some effects and then put it on the internet, and I was a bit like, oh, didn't know you were releasing it looking like this. So yeah, but I won't mention any names because
yeah, it happens. It does happen, and you got to be careful because people, it's the nature of working freelance, especially in the UK. Is there's a lot of people. There's so many nice people, but there is a lot of people who are literal scumbags and will try and steal your stuff. So be careful, people. Burning your time codes or a watermark. Those are also pretty good and much more difficult to remove. So yeah, Irene, is there anything about the lockdown thing you want to throw in?
I guess in terms of just working remotely, working with, because I ended up doing a couple things. This was pre-lockdown with Harry, my editor on Minari. Like we had our edit suite shut down, so we had like a workflow, like going back and forth with passing media. Like I usually have like a Dropbox or like a Google Drive set up on my desktop, so that if I need to just send files over to him, I'll just drag it over to there and I'll let him know like, hey, it'll be up in like 5 minutes, because it'll be like syncing together. He and I, when we were working on the movie, we actually didn't have a shared server. We had worked off of external drives, which isn't normal. Like normally you're working off of a Unity or like a Nexus when you're working on a project, but it was so low budget that we couldn't afford one. So yeah, we had already kind of had that down, and all of the freelance stuff that I did to get into the non-union project, like those were all done remotely. So yeah, just like good media management, I guess, and like it's like figuring out a way to communicate with your editor if you're working with an editor. But I think that what Grace had said with doing the export, like that's really the only way you can do it, unless you're willing to dish out like the big bucks for like a professional service, like for screen sharing and for playback that way. So I know that some shows have been doing that, but it is a lot harder than someone just being in the room with you and being like, hey, like, can you go back a couple seconds and then doing that. So
Yeah, it's a good point. But this also brings us on to like another thing, which is, it's very editor to go, well, how much technical stuff do you actually need to know to be an editor? Because I have a strong case for this, and I would argue a decent amount, quite a good amount of technical knowledge in order to actually do editing and, be organized with your projects and stuff. Like, I can't stress enough how much I was also going to swear then. I can't say how much I hate when I get a project and the bins are so disorganized that I can't find anything and I don't know where anything is and nothing's been labeled. And oh my God, it just makes me so angry and so irate. And seeing other people's projects like that stresses me out, especially now that I've organized all of my hard drives in quarantine. So everything is in a folder with a label, and yeah, it's great. But I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's just my 5 cents on a project organization and technical stuff. So
yeah, for the most part, like all the professional editors I know, they have their own system. Like Harry, because I set up the project for Harry. Like I'll set it up and I'll be like, okay, well, these are the folders we're going to use. And he is super organized. He'll get rid of things that he doesn't need. Like he'll like sometimes mute things, but normally he'll just lift them out. And he doesn't have stacks on stacks on stacks of video because like you shouldn't really edit like that on Avid, at least. We use multicams and all that. So, but yeah, it's helpful to have someone who knows how to do that because, when you're an assistant editor, you're also tech support, and for some people, like they'll have to go in and they'll be like, oh, like this error message came up and well, it's your job to figure it out. But if you are an editor and you don't have to rely on your assistant editor as much because you're able to, figure out like, oh, yeah, I know how to do this. It'll just help you work faster because you don't have to wait until you can get someone. But also like when you're working in TV, like in that instance, when I had to jump on for a week, it's a project and it's for an episode that I don't know anything about. And jumping onto a messy project is really, really difficult. Like I already don't know the episode, but like if I don't know the project, it's even harder. But thankfully, like the project that I jumped onto, like things were organized or like I was able to figure it out because like it might not have been organized the way I did it, but it had some kind of order to it, So like you never know who's going to be jumping onto your project. Like I ended up backing up some stuff for Scandal. And some of the like it was not like some of it wasn't organized and I was like, okay, well, how am I supposed to find this? Like, and I know some people they do that because they're like, oh well, like no one's ever gonna go into this. I was that person who went into it, like so it really just does like make everything easier down the line. And like when you're doing your exports, when you're turning in your projects, it like I don't know how people work quickly with a messy timeline.
Oh yeah, I just hate it so much.
Mm-hmm.
On,
Would you, Irene, find that, say you're working with an editor that you've already worked with and you've learned how they like to have their bins sorted and things like that, would you then adapt your style to then match theirs so it makes it a bit easier for them, or would you just keep with your own style? And if you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always adapt to my editor. So whoever I'm working for, like I'll do that. And there are certain things that he does that I really like that I'll kind of bank into, like my brain and be like, oh, like I think I want to do things like that. Like Harry, for example, has like, do you guys know what a chem roll is? Like it's just a string out basically of all your like for him, like for all the dailies of the day.
Oh,
but but his chem roll is reversed. So all of the last takes are first. So it's like 1 3 2 1 1A 3 2 1, and then like depending on camera order and all that too. But he does that so that he can watch the best performances. Like most like for the most part, the later takes are the better ones. So he'll do that so that he can watch the best takes first and then go out from there. But like maybe that's something that I want to adapt when I do my work in the future, or the way that he organizes things. I'm like, oh, I like how that looks. Like maybe I want to do that. But I never do anything that like sometimes I'll have a discussion with him and be like, hey, it's actually going to be easier for us if we do this. Like I when I was setting up the project for the indie film that we worked on together, I kind of showed him like, hey, this is how we're going to do things. Like, do you have any notes? Like, do you want anything changed? And he was like, no, this looks good. Or actually, like, let's add a reels spin here because we don't work in reels in television. It's a film thing. And I didn't know that. So he was like, hey, like, let's add this here, and just kind of adapting it as needed. But I always check with him first, and I always communicate with him first. And thankfully, like, he's a good communicator back. So, he doesn't get annoyed with all my questions and all that. Yeah, if you're not sure, definitely ask. And I feel like more communication is better than just assuming or guessing, because you don't want to get there and then be like, what did you do? Or like, where is this thing? And I'll let him know, like, hey, I put this in this bin. We're going to be putting these things in this bin, and we're going to be naming things like this way. And like, he liked things named a particular way. And sometimes I'd forget because like he named it one way, and then he had switched it like maybe like a week later, and he was like, why are these different names? I'm like, I'll change them. And I asked him like, okay, are we doing it this way or this way? And establishing that when I wasn't sure, because it was established both ways at one point, and being like, okay, this way. And he said, okay, we're going to do it this way. And I said, cool, I'll change it to this way. We'll keep it this way. Yeah, because it's super easy for me to, like rename things and all that. But yeah, you're really just adapting, and you're trying to make your editor's job easier, because they're the ones cutting the project together, and you're, like, you're kind of like their sidekick throughout the whole thing. And yeah, just making everything as smooth as possible.
Yeah, so you're working on a feature at the moment, right? Or you were working?
Yeah, I was working on a feature.
Yeah, so how is that different? What's like, okay, there's obviously differences between a feature and and obviously TV, but for as an editor, as an assistant editor, are you working assistant editor?
Yeah, so I was a assistant editor.
Yes. What's the major differences that you're sort of facing in your sort of day-to-day job that people might not realize maybe?
Yeah. So for television, you're working out of acts. So you have so something like network television, they have commercial breaks. So you're working in these act chunks. And you're cutting in those, and then at the end of the day, when you're doing your turnover for the different vendors, you lay it all out. There's a format, like usually it's like 3 seconds of commercial blocks, and then like there's a format that you need to follow in order to get it to them, but you basically send them the entire episode because it's only going to be like an hour, 40 minutes long. 40 minutes to an hour long, or like maybe half an hour. So you just kind of build it out and then send it over to them. In a TV show, the showrunners in charge, or like the producers are in charge, and not the director. The directors, they're cycling in, and they're, I guess, depending on the show. For the most part, most shows have directors that change. Whereas obviously, like on a movie, the director is the director. Like they're the ones making the decisions and all that. And in television, you have an entire group of people that you're working with too. You have like usually 3 assistant editors, 3 editors. You have a post PA, you have a post coordinator, post supervisor, and a associate producer or co-producer. So will you like when I was on the movie, if something went wrong, like a couple things went wrong with dailies on the first day, I couldn't just let my post coordinator know, like, oh, hey, like dailies were incorrect that day. I had to figure out, okay, well, what are we going to do? How am I going to get my editor these dailies? And I had to be the one problem solving. And that's something that my editor told me was a bit different when you're working in film. Like you are as the first assistant editor, like you're the point person and you're the one having to solve these problems. We did have a post supervisor, but he was working remotely. So he took care of, like getting us like a Spera. But I had to figure out, like, okay, well, what are we going to cut with then? How are we going to solve this problem? And I also was the one communicating with different departments, whereas I wouldn't really do that as an assistant editor. Like some people do, but for the most part, like you have your co-producer, you have your post supervisor to reach out to people if something does go wrong. And yeah, let's see. Oh, you have less time for each episode too on a TV show. Like if you're working for 9 months and you're working on like 15 to 18 episodes, you'll have less time on each episode. Whereas you might be working 8 to 9 months on one movie for a 1 2 hour chunk. And obviously for TV, it's different workflows and different schedules for network versus streaming, because streaming, you don't have commercials. So even within the TV realm, there are different things like scripted, unscripted, like documentaries too. Like they're all working in different formats. Yeah. And then for films also, you have test screenings, and that was something that I wasn't used to. You have people that you know, or like people that the director know or the editor knows, and you'll gather them and you'll show them different versions of the movie, or you'll show them one version of the movie. We had like a what do you call it? Like a survey that they needed to fill out of like, hey, like what did you think about this, like would you rate this character from like a scale of 1 to 5, like how much did you like them, how much did you not like them, and all that. And that was something that was new to me, because you don't do that in television. That's a film thing. But yeah, those are like general, it's like some points that are different. There are similarities, but yeah, those are some of the things that are different.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. That's cool. I just want to. So yeah, does anyone else? Does either of you two have any additional questions you want to ask Irene or anything? Because we're gonna have to like start doing the old wrapping up thing soon. So if you want to ask anything,
yeah. Is there any specific TV shows that you would like to work on in the future that you've seen recently that you've thought, oh, I would love to get myself on that TV show working?
I mean, I've watched so much TV. Like something like Euphoria, like
yeah,
it was so creative, and it would just did things in a way where I was like, wow, like that'd be super duper cool to work on. Or like I was just thinking about the other day, I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to cut Jodie Comer on Killing Eve. Like how, I just can't even imagine and fathom like what that would be like to like just watch through those dailies, and like I'm not gonna be cutting it, but I'm like setting them up, and I'm gonna be watching through everything and just being like, how do they do that? Like how does like Sandra Oh like do her thing? And like because I discovered that, you know, like when you're watching dailies, like there's this kind of like magic that happens when you're watching through it with some actors, and you're like, oh, this is gonna work, like this is gonna be good, because they like you see something in them when you're watching them. And yeah, like so the Killing Eve like was something I was thinking about this morning, because I watched this past episode just a couple days ago, and I was just like, I don't know how that I don't know, like it'd be super duper cool to work on something like that. But yeah, like I'm really not picky with the stuff that I work on. Like if it's something that I enjoy, I'm like, yes, cool, sign me up, you know. But something also to consider, like, yes, go like working on these like these cool shows is good, but the person that you're working with and for is also really important, because, you know, like Harry and I get along really well together. And like I ended up not looking for a job after Minari, the indie film, had ended, because I want to work with him again. So it like I think we were done like around like December, January, and I did not actively look for a job because I wanted to see what Harry was going on to next. So there are a couple things that I consider, like obviously like money is something to consider, but if you are able to save pretty, like if you're a good avid saver, and the opportunities to work on things that you want to work on, like it grows exponentially, because you don't have to take on your next job that you get for a paycheck, you know. Like so if you want to, like people who want to start cutting, and like some people who want to start transitioning into editing, if you have money saved up, you're able to take on smaller projects and like turn down like the bigger assistant editing projects, because you have something saved up. But yeah, like money is a consideration, and if you're cool with not, you know, like receiving as much, but you get to work on this really cool project, awesome, you know, go for it. Or if you get to work on this really cool project with a person that you really want to work with, absolutely. Like this director that we worked with on that film, like Harry and I really want to work with him again, you know. Like that is something to consider, because you are going to be working with them for extensive periods of time, like in close quarters, and if you're with a team or with a person that isn't good, it is taxing, like I just kind of figure out like, okay, what are some things that I want to consider to be happy going to work every day, and those are the things that I kind of think about.
Awesome. Grace, anything from you before we
I mean, I was just gonna say like Killing Eve would be my answer too. Such a cool program. Like ever since I watched the first episode, like you say, I can't shift that thought in the back of my mind of like, how cool would it be to edit this?
Yeah,
it's so cool. So am I right in thinking before you said that you spoke to the editor of Killing Eve? That's so cool.
Yeah. He was
because
he went to the Eddies. He went to the Eddies, and I was volunteering that year because I think he was there that year for Fleabag. But they have like the editing awards in January every year, and I usually volunteer there because I was one of their past interns, and so I helped him navigate outside of the Disney lot because they couldn't figure out how to get out, and I was like, I know the way.
Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool.
That's awesome. So we're coming to that part of the show, the classic part of the show, where everyone recommends a quarantine film for people to watch at home, sitting in whatever, place they are. What film are we all, or TV show, are we all recommending today, guys? Whoever wants to start, because I need some time to think about my answer.
Me too.
Well, I actually thought about this because I knew you were going to answer this. So, I mean, obviously, Killing Eve that's quite an obvious one because we've just been speaking about it. But Ozark on Netflix, it was really good. Like, I loved that series, and the reason why my answer goes straight to that one is because, like, I was just never bored watching it. Like, not 1 second did I kind of look away from the screen, kind of think about something else. Like, it's so gripping, yeah. So I'd say TV series Ozark. That'd be my answer.
Oh, see, I don't know, because Euphoria is definitely on my top TV show favorite TV show list. But I've been watching. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. Brassic on Sky One. Recently, it stars Joe Gilgan, and I think it was quite good. It's quite a nice, feel good comedy TV show. They just released the second season of it, and it's quite nice, quite a easy watch, but it just leaves you wanting more. There's like 6 episodes per season, so you're like, oh, I wish they did some more, and they've just been renewed for the 3rd season. So I would say Brassic on Sky One.
Awesome, nice. Irene?
I'm gonna recommend a couple of Korean movies / TV shows. There's a Korean TV show on Netflix called Kingdom. It's a zombie TV show, and it's a period zombie show. It's super duper good. It's really, really like cinematic. Like, it's incredible. Train to Busan is another zombie flick.
I love Train to Busan. That's such a good film.
It is so good. Yeah. And then there's actually the new one's going to be coming out soon. I think.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
I did not know that. This is new.
And then if you liked Parasite this year, another one that he did earlier, like a couple of years ago, or like 2 or so decades ago, is Memories of Murder. And that one is also very like noir. It's very cinematic and like it's really, really cool. But yeah.
Awesome. My recommendation for this week is the first renewed season of Doctor Who with Christopher Eccleston. Good old 2006, I think it was. Good old June 2006. Go back, watch some Christopher Eccleston running around and being northern for a bit. It's great. We've got people in the WhatsApp. They're saying film suggestion from Jules is Inception. She's not given a reason why, but there you go. Inception. It's pretty cool looking. There's some crazy special effects that they've done. And I'd say go and watch the behind the scenes for the special effects on Inception, because so many of them are practical and they look amazing. They look so good and they're so well filmed and stuff. Oh, great. Awesome film. Lucy recommends Speed with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. I've never seen it, but I've heard it. I don't know. I don't know. There you go.
That's on my list of movies to watch. I have a whole like document that I've created, like a spreadsheet, because there's so many movies I haven't watched yet. Like I just watched Matrix for the first time like a couple weeks ago.
Oh man, Matrix is good as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got so many films I need to watch. I've just not got the time.
Yeah.
So I
If
do.
you guys want to practice Photoshop and stuff, like every time I watch a big movie, because I'll do like a watch party type of thing, I'll Photoshop my face into each of these posts just for fun. So like, and I'll post them on Facebook. So if you need something to work on with Photoshop or just something to do, that's something you can do after you watch a movie.
Awesome. Not only a quarantine film, but also a quarantine pastime. There you go. Learn Photoshop, everyone.
Yeah.
Aarif is recommending The Game with Michael Douglas and Sean Penn. Very cool. Thank you, Aarif. Very good. Also, I just want to point out, we didn't get this on record, I don't think, but Irene, if everyone can see, has a B, a Manchester B everywhere. Well, it's not necessarily Manchester B, but it's relevant. It's almost relevant. Excellent. Thematic. Unintentionally, maybe, but that we're going to leave that out. We'll cut that. Don't worry. We'll fix it in post, everyone. I made the joke. Hooray! I did it. Okay, right. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. This has been, or listening, or wherever you are. Don't forget to follow us on Anchor FM or Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or Instagram, UOS_film production. Or look for the Film Production Podcast on all your major platforms. Does anyone else want to plug their Instagrams or whatever? You don't have to. It's not a threat. I won't come to your house. I don't know where you live.
That's okay. I need to actually set up a professional Instagram. I haven't done that yet.
Well, there you go. That's something to do. There you go.
Yeah,
Quarantine tip, everyone. Go and set up a professional Instagram. Irene, can you do anything, or are you not asked?
Sure. It's Irene Langkent. I use it. It's public. I have it for everything. So
Excellent. There you go.
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and thank you so much for Irene for being with us, our first professional guest. So you've got that title, first professional guest of the US.
Woo!
Put that on your CV. How about that?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Irene.
Thank you, Irene.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone. You've got to wave to the invisible people that are watching
No.
us. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.